Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Dome at Home, the Manitoba Museum's award-winning astronomy online planetarium program thing. I'm your host, Scott Young, and we will be checking out all sorts of things in the sky. I might look a little sparkly today. One of my lights died, and I'm sort of cobbling together other lights for the green screen, and it doesn't seem to be working 100% of the way I'd like it. So there's either a little bit of sparkly on one side, or I start to disappear and become transparent, and then it turns into just me, the floating head. So let's avoid that. There, that's kind of a good compromise. Okay, nice to see everyone checking in on the chat. I've missed you all. It's been one of those things that we haven't. It feels like we haven't done it for a while. Actually, it's only been 4 weeks, but still. Nice to see everybody checking in. Oh, hi, Ulrika. Nice to see you. And Hollis and Kim and the whole crew out in Vancouver. Oh, nice to see you. I hope, Rowan, are you out there? If you're out there, hi. All right. We have a whole bunch of things to go over in the show today. There are some late-breaking news stories to get into. There's some cool space stuff. We're going to check out some of the spring sky, the galaxies that are up there. We'll connect the dots with Virgo, the maiden. Anybody that's a Virgo out there, we'll do your zodiac constellation today. I won't do your horoscope, but we will use Virgo to find some of the cool sights in the sky, and we'll see what else happens. We're broadcasting from here in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, in Treaty 1 territory, and the homeland of the Red River Métis Nation, and the home of the Jets. The Winnipeg Jets are playing later this evening. For those of you that are hockey fans, I did have to pull some strings to get the Jets game delayed till after Dome at Home, but first things first. All right, let's get right into some of our content that we have for today. And the very first thing I want to talk about is something that is happening tomorrow, although really it's been happening all over social media for the last few days. It's the smiley face planetary alignment. And I got to put that on there right away so that nobody does a freeze frame of me showing a picture like this. There's a whole bunch of pictures online of the supposed smiley face planetary alignment. Now, there is an alignment of the moon and Venus and Saturn tomorrow morning. And the moon is a crescent shape. And so I guess one could imagine that it looks like a smile. However, these pictures that are going around there are getting increasingly silly in terms of what they look like. First of all, the planets are not that big compared to the moon. They're just dots. If you've seen them in the sky before, we watched Venus for months last fall and through the winter, and it looks like a dot, a very bright dot, but still a dot. Saturn, on the other hand, is much, much, much fainter. So at the very least, your smiley face will look like it's got like a black eye or something like that, because one eye will be much brighter than the other. But they're also not this close together. I mean, look at the way these pictures are made. There's like stars shining through the dark side of the moon. What, does the moon not even exist there? I mean, and I think this is actually a picture of the moon that somebody used instead of Venus, and a picture of Saturn, and it looks like its ring is slipping. Anyway, there's a lot of stuff, and we're getting just piles of calls and emails on what is this going to look like. Here's the real deal, and I've got to say it's less impressive than all of the made-up pictures. Here's the actual view tomorrow morning, right about 20 to 6. The problem with this event is that it rises just before the sun rises, and so to see these things, you've got to balance them being high enough above the horizon for us to see them, but also the sky not being so bright from the twilight that you can still see them. Because even Venus can be tough to see when the sky gets really bright. Here is Venus up at the top here, and then down here, about 1,000 times fainter is Saturn. And then here is the size of the smiley face compared to this person who is smiling at us has very, very wide eyes or something. I actually think this was an honest mistake. I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there where people will take an astronomy event and turn it into this big social media thing that is bears no resemblance to reality. I think this was an honest mistake, though. A lot of apps, particularly phone apps or things like that, will actually make the moon bigger than it really is on the sky, because when you look at it, and we'll do this in Stellarium in just a few minutes, the moon looks unbelievably small in the sky compared to the way that we perceive it outside with our eyes. So when you put it on a computer screen, it's like, is that as small the moon is? It doesn't make sense. You take a picture of the moon, it seems really, really small compared to the way we saw it. And so a lot of apps magnify the moon. You know, a standard number is 4 times as big as it normally is. Well, I did a little bit of playing around. You have to magnify the moon to about 10 times its actual size to get some kind of smiley face like those pictures. But this could have been somebody who just saw that on an app and thought, oh, that's what it's going to look like. And then it just grew from there. I'm giving people the benefit of the doubt, I guess, but that's okay. Let me see here what else we've got. I'm not going to get out of bed at 5:40 in the morning for this particular event. Maybe I'm old and jaded, but alignments like this actually happen pretty much every month. Venus and the moon will be near each other one day every month for all of history. And the fact that Saturn is nearby, well, Saturn probably won't even be visible because it's so faint and it's in such a bright sky. So really, you're talking about a grouping of Venus and the moon. And as far as groupings of Venus and the moon goes, this is not a great one. It's down low, it's in the morning sky, it's at a low angle to our horizon, so it's not like it's nice and high up above the trees. You have to go somewhere where you can see almost a perfectly flat horizon to be able to see this event. So I'm not going to get up for this particular one, although now I'm tempted just to get a picture of the smiley face and put it out there. But this kind of stuff happens all the time, and we're now seeing more and more of it being promoted as if it's, oh, a super rare event. Every event in the world is rare. Nothing ever happens again exactly the same. So saying something is rare is really not saying anything at all. I know this is the age of hype and social media and stuff like that, but it bears reflecting sometimes that we need to just rein in that enthusiasm a little bit on things like this. Because imagine if this was your first time looking at the sky and you saw these memes and you were, in fact, I talked to somebody today that was planning on, you know, where they're going to get up and they're going to have their friends over and they're all going to go out and take pictures and stuff like that. And they probably wouldn't even see anything. And they would think, wow, astronomy is dumb because it's, you know, they make a big deal out of nothing. Well, there are big deals out there, and it is a great thing to do, but sometimes it's the subtlety or the quiet or the calm of the observation rather than the fireworks, mind-blowing kind of things. So anyway, smiley face, there it is. Coming up, we have a great event that's occurring. It's International Astronomy Day coming up on the 3rd. And that is every year, astronomers get together and bring out their telescopes and open up their observatories and do all sorts of things for the public. I see I'm blocking part of the text here. I'll remove my head in a minute. This year, Astronomy Day falls on Saturday, May the 3rd. We will be out, and by we, I mean I'll be there. The Royal Astronomical Society of Canada, the Winnipeg chapter, will be there. They're the prime movers behind Astronomy Day. We'll be out at Assiniboine Park near the duck pond. And so in the afternoon, there will be solar telescopes set up, similar to the kinds of things that we used during the solar eclipse back in April, except over by the duck pond on the other side of the park there. And so we can look at sunspots and the prominences on the sun and things like that. And there'll be other telescopes and astronomers around to answer questions and stuff like that. And then that evening, we'll be back in the same spot with telescopes. The moon will be up, and we'll be able to see the moon. We'll be able to see the planet Jupiter early in the evening. Mars is up there, but won't really be telescope friendly, so we probably won't look at that. And then we can look at the constellations and whatever else strikes our fancy. It's a fun event. It's all totally free. You can come by the park, Assiniboine Park by the Duck Pond on Saturday, May the 3rd. The planetarium's also running special Astronomy Day planetarium shows where it's basically live guided tours of the sky. So if you want to hit one of those during the day, you'll know what to see in the evening. And all over the place. There's also a big live stream event across the country with all the different astronomy club centers all contributing to a whole series of live stuff. I'll get that link for that and put that up onto the web page. But should be a really fun event. And like I say, it's all free. Come on out and do some telescoping and do some astronomy. I'm seeing some questions go by here, and I got to get to that. Oh, Melissa, you'll be in Winnipeg then. Nice. Oh, that's pretty cool. We definitely have to meet up at Astronomy Day if you have the chance. It'd be great to see you. Okay. Let's move on to another cool thing. One of our regular contributors, Gia Walker, sent this picture in of the Milky Way. And man, this is a great picture. I mean, look at all those stars. And Gia's a great photographer. We've seen lots of her stuff before. She always finds a way to not just take a picture of the sky, but to bring the Earth element into it too. And so we've got sort of a open field here, and this beautiful sort of mist along here that is along the bottom that sort of is dimming the lights a little bit. Gia writes that this is a stack of 9 separate images. So you take a picture and then you add it to another picture and add it to another picture, and that helps reduce the noise and bring out the details of all the stars and things like that. When I see pictures like this, I just can't resist. I have to just sort of show a little bit more detail. So I'm just going to zoom in here just so I can see a little bit more. And we're going to add these lines here. You might notice there's this weird linear feature. Is my pointer showing up here? It's not. There we go. There's this weird linear feature along here that's dark. It took me a while to figure out what it was. I thought maybe it was from the stacking or whatever. It seems to be the shadow of this mist being cast on the mist above from that bright light over there. So that's kind of cool. You've got this neat light and shadow effect going on. And there's another shadow effect going on because in the Milky Way, between us and all those stars, there are clouds of dust and dark material that absorbs the starlight. And we can see that just with our eyes from a nice dark site. Here, the only stars we're seeing are the stars on our side of the big dust cloud, the big lanes of dust that go throughout our spiral arms of our galaxy. And, got to add in a few more things just to give us some references. Here's the view that we're looking at. There's Aquila and some little known constellations, Scutum the Shield, Sagitta the Arrow, the Serpent's Tail over here, and this is actually Ophiuchus, the Serpent Bearer. Not constellations you often hear about. Down below the horizon, this is the Milky Way is just rising at this point. This must have been like 2 a.m, hey Gia, something like that. It's just starting to rise, and down here we have Sagittarius, and Scorpio would just be out of the frame there. So that's sort of those constellations there. But there's a pile of things in this picture that just show up because it's basically the richest field of the entire sky. So you've got star clusters all over the place. Each of these little clusters of stars is visible in a pair of binoculars. Some of them look like a star cluster. Some of them look just like a little patch of diamond dust on velvet. There are nebula. These little spots here are little fuzzy spots, like the Orion Nebula, but not quite as large. We have the small Sagittarius star cloud, this chunk of sort of detached Milky Way, it looks like. The Lagoon Nebula down here, which is very similar to the Orion Nebula in winter. And what else is there? Oh, up off the top of the screen. Let's see if I can bring this down just a little bit. Will that help me? No, it won't. I thought I could thought I could fit that. There's something called the coat hanger cluster, which is a great binocular target as well. So just piles of stuff just in this one shot. If you have binoculars, this is the place to basically take your binoculars and just scan back and forth. You'll see so many stars. You'll see the bright and dark areas of the Milky Way. You'll see all these little clusters and little patches of faint fuzzy material that is what stars are being made out of. Just a really, really beautiful sight. And Gio, you did a great job catching that image, because it can be tough to get, especially on a moist spring evening where the dew is coming out and you have to worry about your lens getting all coated and things like that. Beautiful, beautiful image. Nice job. Thank you for sending that in. You can send us images. We'd love to show them on the show, of course. And you can always just send them to us through the social medias. The best way, actually, though, is the email space@manitobamuseum.ca. That goes right to my desk and avoids all of the forms and things like that normal contact things do. So you can send me pictures, and I'd love to have them on the show for you. Ulrika just reminds me that we had the coat hanger cluster as binocular challenge a while back. I'm trying to think when that was. Was that last summer, maybe? Maybe we should bring that one back. I can't remember when that was. But yeah, the coat hanger cluster is a beautiful thing to look at. And, oh, Stan, nice to see you. Stan is asking, was that photo taken through a telescope? I didn't record all of the details, but that's a camera with a very wide-angle lens. But I think it was probably tracking the stars. Maybe, Gia, you can pop into the chat and just let us know which lens you were using. But it's a very wide area of the sky. So I would expect that that'd be like a fisheye lens or something like that. And as the Earth turns, you wind up getting streaks on your stars. So if you can have the camera track the stars, that actually gives you those nice images. And then you can stack pictures, and that again builds up more and more of that detail. Okay, great job. And yeah, I'd like to get some more pictures. Would love to see what everybody's doing. It doesn't have to be a photograph, doesn't have to be amazing. It can be, your first attempt looking through a telescope and you drew a picture of whatever. Love to see sketches, love to see anything that you do, basically. It's just nice to know that people are out there doing astronomy. All right. Our next segment is called Connect the Dots. This does not have a cool theme song yet. I did get my colleague Mike to record the voice, but I haven't yet selected music for it. And so I don't have a cute little title still. But this particular Connect the Dots, we will be taking a look at the constellation of Virgo. So Virgo, as constellations go, it's a big one, and it's a famous one because it's in the newspaper every day, because it's one of the zodiac constellations they do horoscopes with. But as far as finding it in the sky, it's not as bad as it can be, but it's also not the most easy thing to find. This is Virgo right here. This sort of, it looks kind of like I don't know, maybe a cup or something like that. And then some, I don't know what it looks like, to be honest. Here's the picture we're supposed to see. Virgo the maiden. Okay, that doesn't help at all. I actually usually find it in context of another constellation that we did connect the dots on a little while ago, which was Leo the lion here. This is Leo, and he's got sort of a backwards question mark for his head, and then a triangle over here for his rear end. This is the tail of Leo the lion. And basically the tail of Leo sort of points right down into the open arms of Virgo here. These stars are not super bright, but they're bright enough to see in the city if you sort of are careful looking for them. There is one bright star in Virgo. It's called Spica. That's this one here. And actually, there is a way to find Spica that is pretty much foolproof. We'll look straight up overhead here. There's our Big Dipper. And this little Z here, that stands for zenith. That's the point directly overhead. So at this time of the year, this is about 11 o'clock at night tonight, the Big Dipper is literally directly overhead. I think we've talked about in the past, you can follow the curve of the Big Dipper's handle, and we say follow the arc to Arcturus, because this star is called Arcturus, and it's in the constellation of Boötes, which again is supposed to be a herdsman, but looks like either an ice cream cone with a big blob of ice cream on top, or one of those super wide neckties, sort of standing up, or maybe a kite or something like that. Anyway, you can follow the arc. Oops, let's make sure I can get this all in frame here. You can follow the arc to Arcturus, but then if you sort of continue that curve, you can speed on to Spica. That's the sort of mnemonic memory phrase that I still use today to sort of figure out where the bright stars are. And once you find where Spica is, basically the half dozen stars on the right of Spica and the half dozen stars on the left of Spica, that makes up Virgo the Maiden. So that's how I find it. Virgo is a really important constellation if you have a telescope, because for telescope users, there's thousands of things to look at, but one of the most common things that people use is, it's called the Messier list. Charles Messier, back in the 1700s, compiled the list of 100, well, him and his assistant composed a list of about 110 objects that he kept finding that were fuzzy looking in his telescope. And he was looking for comets, which you got prizes for finding, but he kept finding these other things that looked like comets but didn't move, so he just recorded them so that he wouldn't get fooled again. We remember Messier mostly for that list of stuff that he didn't care about, the Messier list. It's 110 of some of the best and brightest objects. A quarter of them are in this area here, between Virgo and adjacent Leo and Coma Berenices. So it's a big chunk of sky, a lot of stuff to look at. So what we're going to do here is we're going to sort of zoom in, and Stellarium, this is our free planetarium program. It's you download it, and if you download all of the star catalogs, you basically have the sum total of human astronomical knowledge on your desktop. As we start to zoom in here, there's all the stars, but there's also some little fuzzy things. And as we start getting in closer, we start seeing more and more fuzzy things. And actually, I'm going to go to a slightly different spot. Here's a better spot for fuzzy things. And as we start to get in, each of those little fuzzy things is actually another galaxy. And as we zoom in, there are just hundreds and hundreds of galaxies in this tiny little region. And as I zoom out again here, it's basically between the tail of Leo and the top star of Virgo, like halfway in between there. That's what we call the realm of the galaxies, because there's just a whole bunch of galaxies in there. There's a bunch of Messier galaxies that were on Messier's list, and a bunch of fainter ones that are in the New General Catalog, or NGC. So they just have NGC numbers, and we can turn on the labels and basically find all sorts of them. In general, the brighter galaxies that we see are what are called elliptical galaxies. They're not beautiful spirals like you normally think of. They're basically just a big ball of stars, perhaps a few 100 billion stars, maybe up to 1 trillion stars. And it's just in a sort of a big, almost spherical or oval kind of shape. That's generally when galaxies have collided and merged. They wind up turning into an elliptical galaxy. They lose all their delicate forms and things like that, and they just wind up a big blob. And so the biggest galaxies are these elliptical galaxies like M86, M84, and then down in this direction over here, the biggest one in this entire region, M87. This galaxy has something like 1 trillion stars, and the black hole at the center of it is one of the largest supermassive black holes known, because there's just so many stars there that have died and turned into a black hole, and then the black holes have fed upon each other and grown, and it's a big nasty place. That's sort of one of the local centers of gravity for even us out here in the Milky Way. And as you can see, it has a whole bunch of satellite galaxies orbiting around it and so on. Those are fine, but in a telescope, they kind of look like a fuzzy blob. And I mean, it's cool to see the light from a galaxy and understand what it is, but it's still just a fuzzy blob. But there are some really beautiful galaxies in the area here. There are some galaxies that have collided, these two galaxies. One of them was, this was a spiral galaxy, and a little elliptical galaxy basically went right through it. And this is the splash of stars that we see, the ripples in the pond as one galaxy has gone through another one. Beautiful, beautiful. Certainly for pictures, it's very difficult to see the details like that without a large telescope. Now we also see some spiral galaxies. This is a galaxy kind of like the Milky Way, but we're seeing it edge on instead of seeing it nice and flat where we can see the spiral structure. But there are some spiral structure galaxies around here that we can see. One of the nicer ones, let's see if I can find it over here. M90, Messier number 90 is a beautiful spiral galaxy. A big core in the center here, and then these arms of stars that sort of rotate around like a giant whirlpool. And let's see, I think 59 and 60 are also ellipticals. There's another really nice spiral in this region, and I'm just missing where. Oh, there we go. There's a couple here. So spiral galaxies, like the Milky Way, like the one we live in, generally have a core of stars where there's lots of stars really close together. And these are generally older stars. Stars don't get born in the center much anymore because most of the material that would make stars gets pushed out by all the stars that are already there, and it sort of collects out in the spiral arms. So you can see these little red clouds and these little blue clusters of stars all throughout the spiral arms. This is where baby stars are made, out in the spiral arms. We would live in one of these spiral arms right out about here, maybe 2/3 of the way out from the center. And our sun would be one of the billions of stars in this spiral galaxy. And it would be so small that you couldn't even see it at this distance. You know, this is billions of stars, and you're not really seeing any of the individual stars. You're only seeing where there are galaxy or stars that are clustered together that sort of all shine together to give the sense of a dot or a point of light. But most of these are actually large star clusters, and all the red stuff are basically like the Orion Nebula in our Milky Way galaxy. It's spread all throughout. And you can also see this dark stuff. This is the dust that blocks the light from the stars behind. And if you remember back to Gia's picture, we could see that dust of our own Milky Way in the sky with our eyes. There's another spiral galaxy nearby, M88. This is another beautiful, and like there are thousands of these things, and each one looks different. I mean, there are some similarities. We can classify them. We can put them in different boxes and things like that. But each galaxy is unique, and each one contains billions of suns and likely billions of planets, because we figure about half the stars in our galaxy have planets. So that's a few 100 billion solar systems, each with what, 2, 5, 10, 100 planets? We don't know. That's a lot of worlds. What's really cool about these things is that we can see them from our backyard. On a really dark night, if you've got a good pair of binoculars, some of these will actually show up as a little fuzzy spot in your binoculars. They're a little faint for the average viewer, I would say. They're more of a telescopic thing. But this particular one, for example, is about 47 million light years away. So the light that we're seeing from this galaxy here has been traveling through space for 47 million years at the speed of light before it reaches us, hits our eye, triggers the thought processes in our brain to let us see it. We're at the end of a really, really long chain of events that allowed that sort of thing to happen. So it's pretty cool to see these things live. I mean, it's great to see pictures of them as well. We get a much better view through imaging or, you know, the James Webb Space Telescope or things like that. But to see the light and actually interact with the light from a distant galaxy that is that old is a pretty special thing. So that's why I like looking through telescopes as much as I like taking pictures, because you can get that personal experience, and that it's kind of mind blowing that this can be something that we can actually see here. Okay, we've got a few questions here. Oh, just getting back to Gia's lens, she put that in the chat with all the details. That's fantastic. Thank you so much. 13 seconds. That's not very long. Yeah, that's amazing. Oh, okay. Anyway, Melissa says Leo looks like a mouse and Virgo looks like a mouse hole or a crack in the wall. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Oh my gosh, you're totally right. Let's turn it around. This is the nose of the mouse right here, and the body, and it's got a long tail behind it. And then this is like the mouse hole that it's gonna, that's brilliant. Very cool. I'm stealing that. I need an artist to make me some constellation pictures to match that. That's great. Craig is asking, will the planetarium be offering astronomy courses again in the future, like the Eyes to the Skies course? That's a really good question, Craig. Right now, we don't have plans to. Ever since COVID, the staffing levels have still not completely returned to where we need to be. And so some of the sort of extra things that we would do have not come back yet. We'd like to do courses like that. We know there is demand. Actually, one of the benefits of being in the local astronomy club, the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada, is that they run workshops, which are usually sort of one-night events. But there's a program called Explore the Universe that basically walks you through the beginnings of how to do backyard astronomy. And it's very similar to some of the content from like the Eyes to the Skies course. And we also, there'll be more advanced ones. We did one on planetary imaging and observing, and there have been ones on photography and stuff like that. So hopefully that will come along. Let's see. Oh, Rowan wants to know what the dinosaurs would have seen if light from stars takes that long to travel. That's a great question. So all of the stars in our galaxy are actually closer to us. They're only, 10 or 100 or 1,000 light years away. So the light that is traveling would not have been very different. But the stars move over long periods of time. So the dinosaurs, if they looked at the sky, they would see different patterns because the stars would have moved around. So they wouldn't see Leo the lion or any of that, and they wouldn't see the mouse that you saw. They would see completely different patterns because that was, 65 to 150 million years ago or something like that. The galaxies, almost all of them, you need a telescope to see. And we don't know everything about dinosaurs, but we're pretty sure that they didn't have telescopes. And so they probably wouldn't have noticed that kind of difference. But we can actually look back and see what galaxies were like. Now that we have telescopes, we can still see the light that was being made 65 million years ago when dinosaurs were there. In fact, we can even see farther back than the dinosaurs to galaxies that are, a billion years old, or we can see back in time very, very far. So astronomy really is sort of like being in a time machine. The problem is we can't look at ourselves. We can only look at things out there, and it's not quite as easy as being able to see what what the Earth was like a million or a billion years ago or something like that. Too bad. But that's a cool idea. Yeah, there's I forget where it is. I think it's in Leo. There's a galaxy that is 65 million light years away. So we call it the dinosaur galaxy because basically the light that we see today has been traveling since there were dinosaurs on Earth. All right. So we've got our Virgo, the maiden. Really, the details of things are in that region there. This is called the Virgo cluster. And the Virgo cluster is kind of, if you imagine galaxies are cities, then the Virgo cluster is kind of like our galactic country. It's got a whole bunch of cities that we're all sort of close to and connected to. Now, there are galaxies in all different directions, but these are the ones that are relatively close to us. And it extends farther up into this area up here as well. Now, there's a couple of other galaxies that I wanted to show just because they're in the same region. They're technically not in Virgo, but they are, there we go. They're kind of interesting as well. Down below Virgo is a constellation called Corvus the Crow, and it contains the Sombrero Galaxy. And that's what it looks like. It looks exactly like a sombrero as far as I can tell. So this is like a kind of like a spiral galaxy. It's got that dark dust lane that we see going through our Milky Way, but it doesn't seem to have the same level of spiral arms going on there. We can't really see because of the angle, but it doesn't look like it has those same kinds of things that we see in the other things. Maybe this is a galaxy that is, in the process of changing its shape. Maybe something collided with it, or maybe it's got something going on inside that is changing it. Kind of a mystery, but a very interesting target to look at. And then let's see, right up in the, I should turn the labels back on. There we go. Oh yeah, that helps. Yeah, those are those spirals that we looked at. And then if we go up even farther, we see, here's M100. This is this is one of my favorite galaxies to look at. You can see this kind of shape to it in a good-sized telescope on a dark night. It takes some practice. It takes some really using your eyes to see the light at its faintest, because it's a challenging kind of thing to see, but you can definitely see the spiral pattern there. And then finally, way up by the Big Dipper, there are a couple of galaxies, actually a bunch of galaxies in the Big Dipper area that are also kind of part of our galactic neighborhood. Here, let me get this in the screen here. There we go. Here's the Big Dipper. Along the handle here, these last two stars here, if you make a triangle, they make a triangle, and at the point of that triangle is a big galaxy that has a whole bunch of labels. It's such a big galaxy that when they were labeling things, they actually thought it was a bunch of different objects, because it's close enough to us that some of the star clusters in it are bright enough to sort of get their own names. This is the Pinwheel Galaxy, and you can see exactly why that is. It's a beautiful spiral, and it's almost directly face on to us, so we're not seeing any angle or any sort of distortion from the angle of view. And there are nebulas in here where stars are forming. Recently, there have been stars that have exploded in this galaxy that have appeared out of nowhere and been around for a few months and then faded away. Those are supernovas. That's what happens when a big star dies. And they're not very common in the Milky Way, but if we look at 1,000 other galaxies, there's usually one or two supernovas in one or two galaxies almost all the time that can be observed. So we can sort of learn about the deaths of stars by studying all these other galaxies as well. This is probably another one of my favorites. And then finally, maybe not quite finally, there's two more. The Whirlpool Galaxy, just on the other side of the handle of the Big Dipper. There we go. It's actually two galaxies. We got a beautiful spiral here. And then in the distance, there's a little tiny galaxy that's sort of coming up and is going to pass through the galaxy. And you can already see that its spiral is not perfectly symmetrical. It's starting to change because of the gravity of the nearby galaxy. Gravity does basically everything that we see in the universe is pretty much on the big scale shaped by gravity. And so the shapes of galaxies are often driven by if there's another galaxy close by or not. Now, we have galaxies close by us, but most of them are smaller than us, kind of like this situation. This is our Milky Way, for example, and this would be like the Magellanic Cloud or something like that. But there is a big galaxy nearby, the Andromeda Galaxy, and in about 6 billion years, the gravity of that will start to interfere with our galaxy. I'm not worried about it. Okay, one more galaxy. And again, we're away from Virgo, but the Big Dipper has its bowl here and its handle here. If you start from this star and you go kitty corner to this star and go about the same distance, you wind up at a galaxy that is really beautiful. It's called Bode's Galaxy. An astronomer by the name of Bode discovered it first, but then Messier found it as well. It's a beautiful spiral galaxy. I've actually been taking pictures of this one with my telescope, and once I get all of the different colors put together, I'll combine it and hopefully have a nice picture like this. It's a beautiful spiral, and right next to it is another galaxy that is just weird. Look at this. What's up with that? This is actually a spiral galaxy that we see sideways, so it's kind of the same shape, but then it's got these weird jets of material shooting out from the center. Is that from the black hole in the middle? Kind of hard to say. But this is sometimes called the cigar galaxy because it kind of is cigar shaped, but really all galaxies are kind of cigar shaped, so it doesn't really help. But these two are close enough that if you pointed your telescope right in the middle, you could fit both of them in your telescope view. So when you've got a chance to see two for one, that makes it kind of attractive to go after. So these two galaxies are two of the most commonly looked at galaxies in the sky because they are in that pair. And actually, there's a few other smaller ones nearby as well that complete the view if you're looking for a nice wide telescope. M81 is visible in binoculars, and because it's right high up overhead, if you can get away from city lights, you can just lie back on a blanket or a lawn chair and sort of prop the binoculars up like this, hold them nice and steady, and you scan around in that part of the sky, and granted, you won't see a picture like this. You will see a fuzzy little spot, but again, that fuzzy little spot is, let's see, 11, almost 12 million light years away. So still pretty close, galactically speaking. Okay, so Virgo, a wonderful constellation full of galaxies. Galaxies are really the building blocks of the universe. So that's the kind of thing that that astronomers spend a lot of time looking at. And this is the season for it, because when we look up into the night sky towards the Big Dipper, towards Virgo, we're looking out of the plane of our galaxy. We're not looking through the Milky Way, where that picture that Gia took had all the dust and things like that. We're looking out in the other areas, and there's only a few stars before you get out into space, and so there's not much to block the view of the galaxies. So now is a great time to go out and look at galaxies with your telescope. Okay, let me see. I think it's time for
Cool space stuff!
There is so much cool space stuff going on. I had to cut it a little short because I could do cool space stuff for about an hour. But I have started to drop some of the stuff. There's a lot of stuff that's going on that is sort of I don't want to say routine, because spaceflight is never routine, but you know, once or twice a week there's a rocket that goes up with more Starlink satellites, for example. Kind of not news anymore. So stuff like that I'm not going to spend too much time on. But things like the space stations, there's the International Space Station, and then the Chinese have their own space station, Tiangong, which means Heavenly Palace. They launched a new crew today, and so 3 new astronauts have gone up to join the crew up there, and then after a few days of training and handover, the old crew will get in their ship and come back to Earth. So right now there's 6 folks up on there. Unfortunately, we can't see the Tiangong space station from southern Manitoba for a couple of weeks, maybe towards the end of May. It doesn't get up very high above the horizon. It's not as easy to spot as the International Space Station. So, and that's just based on the orbit that it's in. But still, it's pretty cool that there's 2 outposts in space that we got people living on. The Lucy spacecraft. This is a robot spacecraft that was launched back in 2021, I think, and it's been spiraling out through the solar system, and it's going to look at asteroids. Asteroids are like the building blocks of planets. They're around from the beginning of the solar system. And so just 4 days ago, Lucy went past its second asteroid target, which is the asteroid Donald Johansen. And every time I look at this, I think it says Donald Johnson, and then I think of Don Johnson, and I think of Miami Vice, because I'm an 80s kid. Donald Johansen, it's named after that guy, and it's got the cool serial number 52246. It looks kind of like a potato with another potato stuck to the end. Actually, we think that this is probably what happened. There are probably two asteroids that collided, and the heat of the collision melted the rock, and then because it's out in space, the rock froze, and we wound up with two asteroids stuck together. This is probably a very common thing. So this is and you'll notice the picture is cut off here. So when they build these spacecraft, they actually figure out, okay, well, here's the size that we estimate that this asteroid to be. So here's the field of view of our camera. So we should take this picture at this distance to get the full view, and then the close-ups will, and all this planning goes on and on and on. And it was based on the information we had at the time, which was that this thing was about 5 kilometers across. It turns out it's actually about 8 kilometers across, and it's just darker than a typical asteroid. And so all we can see from Earth is a little dot, and so we sort of make some guesses based on its brightness, and the guess was off because this isn't a typical asteroid. It's quite a bit darker. So it's bigger, but it was reflecting as much light as a smaller asteroid should. So that's why this picture is like this. The folks at the Southwest Research Institute that built the cameras were very keen to point that out in the press conference so that people weren't sort of wondering why they couldn't take a proper picture. At least they didn't have their finger in front of the lens or something like that. Now, Lucy has visited another asteroid, actually 2 other asteroids already. Its first target, Dinkinesh, turned out to have a moon, which they didn't know about, which was pretty cool. It discovered basically this second rock that it looks like they're touching, but this is just a perspective effect. This image actually, they have several images showing it moving. So it's already discovered a moon of an asteroid. Actually, a lot of asteroids seem to have moons. They're discovering more and more of them. And I wonder, the difference between 2 asteroids or an asteroid and a moon versus 2 asteroids where the 2 have hit and stuck together. I mean, there's not a whole lot of difference there. Maybe this was a moon of the asteroid that eventually just spiraled in and connected. So we're learning all about how asteroids form and evolve and things like that. So Lucy is on its way to it's got 5 more asteroid targets that it will take a look at, particularly at ones out in the main asteroid belt and out near Jupiter. So we'll be seeing more asteroid pictures from Lucy for the next little while. This made a bunch of news. The Blue Origin, which is one of the companies that lets you buy a ticket into space, if you have, oh geez, what is it? About 150,000 US. You get to go up on this rocket, Blue Origin, and it goes up, and you spend about 5 minutes at the top weightless, and then you come down. So it's not a long flight, but this was crewed. Well, it had 6 women aboard, no guys, and so that's kind of cool. One was Katy Perry, and basically this was how she promoted her new album. So on the one hand, there's lots of jokes being made about, millionaires going into space and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I get all that. But at the same time, the idea that, someone could sort of build a marketing plan that says, yeah, I'm just going to get in a rocket and go up and promote my album. Sure, that doesn't mean I can do it yet, but it means we're getting closer. I'm hoping that I'll be able to buy a ticket on a rocket like this for less than 10 years salary at some point. So it's getting there. And it's always nice to see, stuff happen that doesn't require the presence of a guy to make things go, right? I mean, there's obviously no reason why women couldn't be doing all of these things, but it seems to be so rare that it turns into a big deal whenever you have an all-woman flight or an all-woman airplane crew or an all-woman anything, which is really unfortunate. But anyway, that was kind of an interesting thing last week. Speaking of space flight, so for those of you that have been following the news, NASA, which is an American institution, is a sorry, I just saw Randy's joke in the chat. Totally derailed me. Thanks, Randy. NASA is an American institution. They are in the process of confirming or have already confirmed their new administrator, who is somebody who flew on one of the Falcon 9 SpaceX rockets as a private astronaut. And they were asking him a bunch of questions, and it sounds like the Space Launch System, this big orange rocket with the solid rocket boosters on the side that was used for the first Artemis flight, is not going to be continued past Artemis 3. But luckily, because Artemis 2 has already been built and Artemis 3 has also already been built but hasn't been put together yet, it sounds like those two missions will go ahead, which is great because Artemis 2 is the one that we're going to have a Canadian astronaut on. That's the one that Jeremy Hansen will fly around the moon with his crew of 3 other Americans. And here we see them along with, there's a backup American, and Jenny Sidey is the backup Canadian astronaut. So presumably, even if Jeremy was to get sick, Jenny would step in and get to continue the Canadian aspect of this mission. With the changes in the United States, we've been wondering about what's going to happen with Canada's participation in the American space program and so on. But it looks like at least this flight will go ahead, as well as Artemis 3, which was supposed to be the first landing back on the moon. But after that, it sounds very likely that NASA will switch to probably the SpaceX Starship program, because Elon Musk and the new NASA guy are best friends. And there's a whole bunch of things going on there. I'm not sure that's a great idea. We've yet to see Starship to fly, and for a whole bunch of reasons, but mostly because Jenny Sidey, as the backup, was going to be probably flying on the next Canadian mission. And the rumor was that was going to be maybe Artemis 5 or 6, which would see her land on the moon. Having a Canadian woman land on the moon would be amazing. I don't want to predict out that far anymore because of the various turmoil. So we'll have to see what happens. I'm sure that Jenny will wind up flying somewhere. I mean, she's a wonderful member of the astronaut corps and super smart and just a wonderful person. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what her flight will be. But at this point, we kind of don't know. All we know is that it looks like, because we were worried that, frankly, they were just going to cancel everything and kick any non-American off the rockets completely. Doesn't look like that's happening. It looks like Jeremy will go around the moon. And the launch date that we currently have is spring 2026. So a year from now, Jeremy Hansen will be the first Canadian to go around the moon. That would be pretty cool. Will it be delayed? Almost certainly. There's always delays. But we're going to be watching this very, very carefully, and it's going to be a big adventure, and we're all going to come along for the ride. So I'm really looking forward to that. Okay, you might have heard about Comet Swan. About the first week of April, a new comet was discovered, and it was bright, and it was going to be, this is going to become really bright at the end of the month. You'll be able to see it with the unaided eye. And within 2 weeks, it already started to disintegrate. This was the picture around April the 8th or something like that. This is the picture yesterday. And basically, as it is coming close to the sun, the gravity of the sun is tearing it apart, which gave it a big burst of activity. And that happened to be when we discovered it. So we thought it was brighter than it should have been. and it is already fading away. So there is not going to be a bright comet at the end of the month. Now, it may still be visible. It's possible you'll still be able to take pictures of it with your telescope or something like that. It's not going to be something you can see with the unaided eye, or maybe not even in binoculars, though. Stay tuned to the museum webpage where I do my monthly sky update, because we'll keep all the details there, and my Scott the Skywatcher page on Facebook will have all the latest, so that you can try and track it down. It might still be an okay comet, but it doesn't look like it's going to be all that in a bag of chips like they were predicting, which is too bad. All right. Let me just check to see if we have any questions in the... Randy's joke again. Yeah, it's funny. The private flights, the astronaut flights, they really are, you're just barely getting into space, and you're spending a few minutes floating around, and you get to see the Earth from space. You can see the curvature of the Earth, but it's a very, very short experience. And so I'd love to do it, but it's still just barely. And people are not always comfortable using the term astronaut for someone that's like, I rode in a jet to Calgary, so I can call myself a pilot. It's not exactly the same, right? But semantics aside, more people are going into space, and I think that's ultimately a good thing, because I want to go. Anyway, please send us any of your pictures. If you have questions, if you have comments of what you'd like to see us cover on the show, I'm working on a show on these new smart telescopes that you can buy. They're a little, I don't know, the size of a notebook, and you basically put it down and it automatically finds out where it is, and it starts taking pictures of whatever you want in the sky and starts sending it to your phone, and you control it through your phone. They're really popular. They're taking the astronomy world by storm right now, and they're relatively inexpensive as telescopes go. You can get them for between $600 and $800, which, I mean, is still not inexpensive, but like I say, compared to the telescope gear that I've spent money on, it's a small amount. We're also going to do some more cool space stuff, and we're going to get Ulrika back to do some binocular challenges. Thank you all for coming. Remember Astronomy Day, Saturday, May the 3rd, and come and join us there. We'd love to see you, love to say hi, and send us your requests, and we'll get to all of it. Everybody can go and watch the Jets game now if you're into that. I'm actually going to hopefully set up my telescope, and it's clear, right? It was supposed to be clear. We'll see if it's clear. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll see you next month, and have a good evening.